I've had Mother Amma popping up in my personal field for years, and I don't have any context for her. So when I saw that you got
Mhm,
your name from her,
mhm,
something in me
mhm,
like I'm getting goosebumps like right now even talking about it because it was
mhm.
so powerful. I would love to hear more about like just anything
Of
about the topic
course.
of sovereignty. Yeah, you go first, right? Thank you.
Well, I mean, I'm happy to share whatever you want to, whatever is pulling on you or tugging at your heartstrings, whatever message she might have for you, even that might come through me as a channel. Um, let's just, I'm open. Let's just see what she has to say. But I'll tell you quickly, and I could share it on the show too, because a lot of people want to know since I was am blessed to receive her name. And that was like over 10 years ago. And I used to go every year, was very excited. I used to sing for her the last 2 years that she came to New York pre-pandemic. I was in the New York Sangha. And so we would rehearse for months and months to sing a special song for her. And it was such an honor to sing for her those 2 years. But she gave me, and this is a long story. I don't know if we have time now, but I really felt guided to receive a name, a special like spiritual name or like a Dharma name, a mantra or
Mm,
something. And I actually did receive a mantra, and that was easy. Sorry, somebody's
that's okay,
calling me,
honey. I'm
but I guess
present
I'll
with you.
call
Thank
back.
you.
No, it's fine. I'll call them back. Anyway, so a friend of mine, like who is also an Amma devotee, and I never was like that, like kind of like I'll travel all over the world and I must be with her at every moment.
Yeah.
So, but I always felt that heart link, heart connection with her as divine feminine, sacred mother. And because I personally didn't have the warmest, most emotionally stable or reliable mother figure in my life, I felt like when I met her, I just fell into her chest. Like I just like all my chakras blew open the first time I received a hug from her. It was very emotionally healing for me. But getting back to the name, I'll try to shorten this. There were a lot of obstacles. And even though I asked the first day, because she would always come for 3 days to New York before the pandemic, right?
Mm,
New York City. So the first day I went to receive my darshan, and that's like a spiritual hug or an embrace from her.
yeah.
And then I asked through her translators, like swamis and her assistants, can I have a name? And then she said, yes, come back tomorrow. And I was like, oh, I was going to work tomorrow, but maybe I'll just take the day off. So that's what I did. I took the day off. I took the next 2 days off, actually, and I made sure that I was there. And I thought, oh, this is great. I'm going to get my name. I feel so important, so special, so spiritual, or so accepted, so connected. And then all of these trials and tribulations, all of these obstacles, and these confusing, mixed, conflicting messages from different people that worked with her. No, you can't have a name because we only give Dharma names, or Alma only gives Dharma names at the retreat. And that's usually in Boston, like after the New York City tour. So I thought, well, but she said I could have a name. And they were like, I don't know how that's possible because she never does that. She used to, like 10 years ago or 5 years ago, I don't remember. She doesn't do that. She hasn't done that for a really long time. And I was like, oh my God. I mean, she definitely did say, are you sure? And I started questioning myself, like maybe I'm going crazy. And then I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure, definitely sure. She said to come back and she would give me a name. So I don't know if, I don't remember if I got another darshan that day or not, but I stayed for the whole day. Just being in her presence, you receive the energetic darshan, the blessing, right?
Yeah.
So even if she doesn't physically hug you, everyone in the room, and there are always thousands and thousands more coming, everyone receives that transmission. So then, and when I think I did get another hug. And then I said, well, can I have my name now? And they were like, yeah, no, I mean, come back tomorrow. So I was like, okay. I went back the third day and I was like, this is it. I'm determined. I'm like, everyone get out of my way. I'm going to the
Yeah.
front of the room and I deserve a name. I'm going to get a name. So a lot of it had to do with like just kind of battling my own ego. And also like, questioning if I even deserve a name. Like, what is going on here? What's the lesson? What's the medicine? And I just started questioning myself. Am I worthy to receive a name from her? And it was just like a really heavy trip. So long story short, I was told, look, I don't know if you're going to get a name. I don't think so. Like we said, she doesn't really give names anymore in New York City. It's like, nope. I mean, she did promise me a name and I would love a name. So one of her swami said, just like here, sit next to her, sit in front with this group of people.
Yeah.
And I was just like feeling so frustrated and like, this is unfair. Life is unfair. Like all of my old stuff was bubbling up to the surface that I've been battling with for years. Not realizing the gift of just being that physically close to her field, to her presence.
Yeah.
Not even realizing, wow, I get to sit so close to her for like 3 hours instead of focusing on that blessing and receiving it and soaking that in.
Yeah.
I was just like, this is unfair, So it's like my inner child was having a real hissy fit, like a trauma, not a trauma, a tantrum, right?
Oh, tantrum, that's the word.
So I was like, okay, what do I do? So then finally it was my turn. I waited on and there are lots of lines. So it's like all day you're waiting, basically. You're just like sitting in the field. But I was so impatient at that time. And not to say that I'm like a saint now, but at that time, I didn't quite understand how sacred and special this moment is to share with her. And now I really do because she doesn't come anymore. And I miss her. So anyway, long story short, the end of the story is I got up to her. I believe I received another darshan because you don't want to receive too many because then it's taking time from others who haven't received any.
Oh, right.
So you don't want to be sort of like greedy, like hug greedy. So I told Swami, who is a translator, even though she does speak English, but I thought she didn't. She understands everything. Let's put it that way. And she's a self-realized master. So, but I was just, can you tell her? Meanwhile, she's probably looking at me like I understand everything you're saying. But I didn't know then because she doesn't really speak in English.
Yeah.
Rarely. But at that time, I didn't hear her speak English. So
Right.
I assumed we can never assume anything, right?
Yes.
So the most important piece of this story is that, so I asked the Swami, I said, well, Amma promised me a name the first day I came to see her. Do you think I can get a name? I know this is the last day she's going to be in New York City and I can't go to a retreat. I'm working. And so he whispers to her and she's looking at me like intently and intensely, like the stare, just her gaze, just not stare, her gaze just permeates through you. And you receive like a transmission right there through her eyes. So she's looking at me, but I didn't realize it. I was like, okay. I was just like clueless. And then she points to a book in the corner of the room. And the Swami walks over, retrieves the book, hands it to her. She flips through the pages, very matter-of-factly, points to something, and I believe that was a book of names. Points to a name, the Swami writes it down. He comes over and he's like, this is your name. I was like, I can't even pronounce that name. Like, what does it even mean? He said, it's Vandana. I said, but what does that mean? And I couldn't remember it or say it for like 3 months at least after. what is it? Vandana. I couldn't even say it. And he said, well, this is sort of like a very holy, sacred, very high vibrational name. So this is such an honor that she actually gave you this name. And I was like, oh my God, am I worthy to even receive such a name, you know? So I thanked her, of course. And I was so grateful and so elated and so excited. Yay, I got a name. Now I'm like, oh, now I have to work for this name. Like, I don't have to, but I felt like I did. Like, I felt like I needed to prove or show Amma or the
Mm,
universe that I'm worthy of being called by this name. So little by little, I had a business partner, was doing a lot of online classes and teachings, even at that time. And so this is like years later, fast forward,
yeah.
probably like 2014 or 15. And then my business partner said, I've received guidance that you should go by the name Vandana. I mean, after all, you were given this name, you might as well use it. It's such a beautiful name. And I was like, I mean, I guess. And he's like, and I'm going to go by my spiritual name. And he named himself something. I was like, okay, sure. And it stuck. And it has remained on Vandana to my for my spiritual healing practice, my online classes, my business, students, clients. The only ones that don't call me Vandana are people from my past that are just, friends or acquaintances that don't really know who I am, like really who I am at the core. They don't understand it or they don't want to know it. But that's okay too. So I'm also Meryl. So that's my birth name. And I still go by both. And I have other names too. So I mean, I have a lot of I have a Dharma name from my Buddhist practice, which is Myilkai, because I've been a Buddhist since 2005, 2006. And that's a Japanese name. I had a Sufi name that I don't even really exactly remember, but it was really beautiful because I explored Sufi traditions as well.
Mm,
Anything from the heart, anything. It's all about love.
mm.
I have a Hebrew name, Atara, and that's also about light. And actually, Meryl, MER, besides it sounding like mermaid, which I am too, but
I
there's
love
MER
that.
means light. So I was like, oh, well, maybe my my birth name is not so lame. So I was like, oh,
Oh,
Mir light. So maybe my parents kind of like had an idea who they were, the soul of the child they were giving birth to. So I was like, okay, well, I guess they weren't that bad after all. And that's my story. And I miss Amma. And, for a while I was going to her retreat, her ashram
yeah.
in New Rochelle. Where are you? Where do you
I'm in
live?
Massachusetts, so I'm not too far from where
Oh,
you're living right now. Wait,
what part of Massachusetts are you in?
in Plymouth, the birthplace.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
I used to go to Salem a lot with my
Oh,
ex boyfriend, and
love it.
I love it in Salem. And anytime I can ever go back there, I do. But it's far, and I don't drive, so
Right.
I remember just taking the bus, the subway to the city, and then the bus, and that was like 5.5 hours
That's a
each way.
journey. That's a
It
journey.
was
Yeah.
definitely it was definitely a journey. I took
Yeah.
Yeah, but I did it. I went to New Hampshire like a few years ago to New England, but I love it in New England. So
Yeah.
actually, she has a Sangha, she has a community there. She has a ashram in, I think in Boston, right? Because she used to go to Boston. That was like the main
Mm,
retreat. So
I had no idea. It's so
definitely
funny you
check it
say that.
out. Just
I'm going
visit
to.
amma.org. Yeah.
I'm so grateful you shared that story because that's literally everything. That's what being a sovereign empath is all about. Like you went through a rebirth period in getting your name.
Yeah.
Like that whole, like I'm getting chills
Yes.
again. Like I've got chills the whole time. And it's like,
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
humility you
me
had to have
too.
to face all those emotions, especially after you said that
Yeah,
your birth mother wasn't able to be that mother for you.
yeah,
It's a lot of courage. There's a lot of courage in something so simple like a name, but it's like you,
yeah,
part of you knew how important it was to have that name. And even like when people subconsciously were being structural tension for you to assert yourself, like they were kind of gaslighting you a little bit, but it was really an opportunity for you to claim, this is my name. She
yeah. It
said,
was
I have a
definitely
name.
a spirit. It felt like a spiritual test. And I
Yeah.
didn't understand it. And I was really rebelling and resenting why this was so hard and complex and
Mm.
confusing until I finally got the message. And the messages seep through just maybe 5% while it was happening because my ego was 95%. And it was just like in the fight flight mode
Yeah.
and resistance and life is unfair. This is unfair. Why me? Do I deserve? But I needed, like you said, I needed to experience and take that inner exploration and sort of like not fight but feed my inner demons, right? You never want to fight them because then they grow stronger and it can feel overwhelming and
Yeah.
overpowering. So what we want to do is like turn them into ally, turn those voices and also those unaddressed, unresolved feelings, like the wounds
Oh
of my
yeah.
inner child, like that hurt little girl. And, the inner teen who's just like really trying to protect that little one, but also the inner critic and the inner critical parents. We know we have all these different parts of us, all
Mm.
these different voices were talking to me, and they were really trying to get my attention, like, hey, look over here. What about this? And look at me. What about that? So later, like over the following months and years, I was able to reassemble it and kind of like process it and realize, like, oh, I see what happened. Thank you, Amma. And she, of course, divinely set this all up with her divine intelligence,
That's wow. That's
and that's
amazing.
why it all played out the way it did. And so sometimes we just need to sit back, breathe, and have that, like, cultivate that perspective, that higher perspective, and have more compassion for ourselves, and not get caught up
Mm.
in the drama part. And so that was a really great teaching that she offered me. So I have her pictures and I have a doll that represents her that actually is made of her clothes in my bedroom.
God.
Pictures all over my bedroom. And although I don't feel as close to her as I used to, and I've explored other traditions like Sufism. I
Yeah.
mean, even when I was visiting her ashram in New Rochelle,
Yeah.
I explored Hinduism and just about everything, Buddhism, a lot, like for many years of my life. But what she says? She
Yeah.
says, my religion is love.
Wow.
So
Whoa.
I'm not, I'm very secular. I'm not like into the dogma of any particular religion. So, and that feels true for me. But
Mm.
if people are that, and that's true for them, and it helps them live in their heart, then that's great. Then I think that's wonderful. I respect that. I
Yeah.
admire that. So
I hear
everyone
that.
has to follow their own path, but I definitely want to always walk the path of love. And if I tend to lose my way, trust that I'll always find my way back.